Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Astoria Filmmakers Podcast. My name is Victoria Fragnito.
And I'm Jim Galizia. Thank you guys for tuning in. We have a fun podcast today. We're going to have on a longtime friend of mine. His name is Paul Braun. He's going to be our day player, and he brought a bunch of cool stuff for us to see. His channel is chock full of ridiculous content, but also he suggested our film of choice, Mad Max Fury Road from 2015. It's important to specify because there's like 3 Mad Maxes. There's a lot.
This is the 4th Mad Max.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
But interesting movie. We'll definitely talk about that a little bit more later on.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, what's going on with you, Victoria? How are you? What's new?
Well, beyond regular, pandemic life, I don't know if any of you podcasters have been listening since the last season. My husband, Nick, was on early on to talk about his production company and their film that they've been working on for a long time. The original name of the film, we actually, at the beginning of this year, we were all ready to dive in, hoping that 2021 would be a lot better than 2020.
And then,
because we were supposed to film last October, right up till 2 days before our original wedding date. Obviously, that didn't happen. So we were having, production meetings, getting ready to, do the whole investor thing and try and get funding and all that stuff. And we get a cease and desist letter from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. His film was called The Gift of 65 Roses. If you're familiar with the CF community, 65 roses is a very common phrase. Stems from the story of a kid who had cystic fibrosis, couldn't say it. It came out sounding 65 roses, and it kind of became a symbol for people who have CF. So Nick was like, this is, great title. It lets people in the CF community know that it's for them, and people who don't know it will, find out when they watch it. Well, apparently the CF Foundation has trademarked that phrase.
Well then.
Yeah, and it's the funny thing is, like, we've been, promoting the film for years, trying to get, interest and getting ready to film and, trying to build a community before we crowd fundraise and all that fun stuff. And we got a cease and desist letter, but we have a new title now. So that was fun.
Modern problems require modern solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, you just had to think of a good title. But what is it? I don't even know it.
The new title is called Worth One's Salt, because with cystic fibrosis, one of the earliest things they used to do back in the day, if your baby was really, really sick and wasn't gaining weight or was, crying all the time after they ate, one of the things the doctor told mothers to do was to kiss the baby's skin, kiss forehead, arm, something like that, because there's a lot of sodium that gets released through the skin. So salt is a very typical, another theme that's used among cystic fibrosis patients. So
interesting. Would never know.
Yeah.
Does that now require changing the title? Does that require any rewrites, or maybe adding a scene where a mother is kissing a baby on the head and they talk about the salt thing and explain it a little further? Is that a thing?
There was a scene where we explained what 65 roses was. So we obviously have to take that out. And we're going to adjust depending on how they want to incorporate the salt thing. So there will be a scene, probably really short, that explains that whole thing.
Right. You don't want to make it too explainy, but also you'd still want to make the title now make sense. But
right. Like all I could think of when we were going over, we had the whole production team together on Zoom last night, and all I could think of was that Family Guy clip where Peter goes to the movies and he keeps seeing, they say the title in the film. Like,
he said it.
Yeah, he said it. He said it. And then it got to like Superman 4 and it was just ridiculous. Like, and I was like, yeah,
I'm going to save him because I am Superman 4, the quest for peace.
Yeah. So
he said the title. All right, he said the title.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
That's pretty crazy. That's stinks that you guys had to change the movie title, but cool that it's moving forward. And I have to assume that Worth One's Salt is not a copyrighted or trademarked thing on behalf of the Cystic Fibrosis organization.
No, we looked it up, but we have, we've changed everything on social media so far, so there will be posts and all of that fun stuff announcing the new title and all the fun stuff. Now we can actually like start approaching investors again. Like we had to put all of that on hold because of changing the name. We didn't want to, well, the name was this, but we can't use it anymore because the biggest cystic fibrosis foundation in the world is after us. So we couldn't do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not easy to go to investors and be like, hey, look at all these crazy hurdles we're jumping through. And then them just being like, great, here's the same amount of money we promised. It's tricky. You got to figure out how to have that conversation. So that's interesting. But fun. That's all part of it, it's part of the filmmaking journey.
Yeah, I try and tell Nick every time that there's like a stumbling block. We had this, they're, on a director hunt at the moment too. So while they're in the middle of all that, I'm like, look, every time something gets in your way, it just means you're doing something right. That's all.
Right.
Just look at it that way. The world is trying to prevent you and you're pushing forward. So.
I had that thought before. I didn't bring it up, but because your films may be gaining a little bit of notoriety before it pops up. So all of a sudden now this organization's like, oh, they're using our name, that you can't.
Well, right. Because we've been touting this for years. We've been, trying to gain a following and everything on within the CF community, because I think one of the really good things about this film is that we have a very, we have an audience base built right in. And there are people who, they can't really go. Cystic fibrosis people have to stay 6 feet apart. They had to before the pandemic. This is something that they have to do. So they don't cross-contaminate and get each other sick. So when a movie comes out and it goes straight to the theater, like 5 Feet Apart did, that romantic film that came out, they can't really, you go to the theater and then you're like, well, am I sitting next to someone who has CF? Like, I don't like, so it's, it's nice to have an audience base built right in so we can talk to distributors about like, put it immediately on streaming and it'll get views, so.
It's the ultimate, like, what was I going to say? When COVID must have happened, Nick must have been like, told you so. Or like,
a lot of CF people are like, this was what my life was like. A lot of times, like, it's
like Loki in Thor Ragnarok, where Thor gets finally slammed around by the Hulk, just like how he did in Avengers. And he goes, that's how it feels. Yeah. Nick must have been screaming that out of the window.
Not really, because he's never really had to like quarantine like this, but like having to be, careful when we go to the doctor's office and all that stuff. It's a little like, this is our lives, guys. Yeah,
that's a little crazy though. My life is not as crazy. Not much is going on over here. My room is looking a little bit more empty because I'm moving to Brooklyn. But don't worry, it's still going to be called the Astoria Filmmakers Club Podcast. But moving to Brooklyn, it's going to be fun. Moving at some point next week. So I don't know if we're going to film one more podcasts here or if I'll be in a whole new place for the next one. But we'll see. We're going to play it by ear because it's a lot. It's a little anxiety building. Anytime you move, it's just automatic anxiety for no reason.
Yeah.
But all seems to be going well. Got approved for the apartment yesterday. So half of my anxiety is gone.
It's going to be weird not having you like 2 blocks over anymore.
Yeah, I can't just scream out the window, Victoria!
Yeah.
And you still not hear me because you're still that far away. But
yeah.
But let's get into the nitty gritty of what we're here for. We're here to talk to Paul Braun III. That's a hell of a name, hell of a mouthful. And we're going to talk to him about all the projects he does and some of the stuff he does with Lucky 6 Productions. So let's show a clip from Lucky 6 Productions YouTube channel, and we'll get Paul in here and talk to him.
I'm a real poppin' animal. Surf, sippin', sippin', sippin'.
Wayne, why are you dressed like Batman?
All right. Well, that was a clip from Lucky Six Productions, and we're here with Paul Braun. Paul Danino Braun. I have to say your full name because we really know that that's the coolest name I've ever heard in my life.
I mean,
Yeah. Paul Danino Braun the Third. That's how you signed my yearbook. So I've known Paul for a very long time.
Yes, and I've known Jim Galizia for an equally long time. Yeah. Great.
That was cold. That was cold-hearted. People just listening to this, he held up a piece of paper to remind himself of who I was. But I've known Paul since like what? Have we known since middle school or high school?
Definitely high school, probably middle school as well.
I think throughout middle school, I was too socially awkward to make friends, so I had none.
Not me.
Yeah, I saw you. Awkward. I saw you across the class doing zany crap all the time, and I was like, God, that guy's nuts. And then in high school, I was like, I'm gonna be friends with him. And then we started making films and picking up cameras and stuff. And then we started turning each other into zombies and doing zombie films. I think
killed each other more times than I can count.
You should do a kill count for just Jim Galizia. One of the videos that Lucky Six does is kill counts. And they do just kill counts of like how many times the Joker killed somebody in the Joker movie or the Dark Knight. How many times Judge Dredd has killed somebody.
Yes.
Yeah, there's always
people freak out when they watch and they're like, you skipped all these other people. And it's like, no, we do a specific character from a film or a franchise, and it's everyone they killed / are responsible for their deaths.
I would love to see more heroic characters. Like, how many times has Captain America murdered a person?
Oh my God, so many times. And everyone's fine with it.
Everyone's cool with it because it's in the name of justice, and he's Chris Evans and he's gorgeous.
Yes. Objectively, yes. I saw him on Broadway and it was great because he was playing like an asshole in this play. And I just like, but you're so handsome. Why are you so mean, bro?
I mean, we did watch, what was the movie? Knives Out. We watched Knives Out on the podcast for season 1. And he's phenomenal in that as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Victoria, did you like Knives Out? I forget.
I did like Knives Out.
That was good, right? It was really good. I liked it. Just Chris Evans, man. He's talented. He's more talented than we give him credit for. I'm so used to him just being Captain America, you know? I just remember him wearing the shirt.
And for those of you just listening, Jim is wearing a Captain America shirt. Paul's wearing a Spider-Man shirt.
And Victoria's not wearing she's wearing a sweater.
I'm wearing a sweater. It's not exciting.
We established she's the Linda Cardellini of our little Avengers group, equally important, and was great in Scooby-Doo.
And I'm obviously Nick Fury. Anyway, Paul, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the film industry and what else you do, because you do have you have this little side job as well.
I do a little thing on the side. It's honestly not that important. So film, how'd I get into film? I really, really liked movies growing up. I just decided one day when I was in middle school, like, fuck it, let's get a camera. Oh, cursing. We're cool with that, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
You're good.
Like this fan-fucking-tastic. Okay. So I ended up just buying like a shitty little mini DV camera that was terrible, as Jim will know, because I've used it to capture him quite a few times, and just started making like stupid little skits and videos and stuff. And I ended up getting into special effects, which is really the thing that I'm most like do on sets, out of necessity, because no one else could do it. And I wanted to do things like with zombies, and the only way to get zombies was if I made the zombies. So I ended up learning, just teaching myself special effects and makeup and blood and building rigs for like gunshots and stuff like that. And then I ended up getting a job like freelancing at Party City in Comac, teaching people how to do special effects. Sorry about that.
You're popular.
I'm not. It was a spam call. Just the worst thing ever. So I ended up.
Did you know that your car's extended warranty is about to go out?
No, I don't care. Fuck you. And everyone who looks like you robot. So I ended up doing freelancing at Party City, teaching people to do special effects, which is really just a way for me to get paid to make myself look like a horrible monster every day, which tickled me. I just loved it. And I mean, Halloween in Comac was always like my favorite day, because I got increasingly more violent every year and somehow never got in trouble, which is hilarious because those poor girls who wore like a spaghetti strap would get sent home, and I'm here with an eyeball hanging out of my head. Like, I'm not upsetting anyone right now.
I mean, yeah, realistically, so many people should have been sent home, but I don't think you ever did. I think the blood and gore didn't bother people on Halloween.
No, ironically, the
But
only
a
time
shoulder blade, dear God, a shoulder blade, no.
I mean, you're gonna distract all the boys, obviously.
Right.
You know.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I didn't notice any of them because I was noticing your eyeball sticking out of your head. I was like, Jesus, Paul, are you okay?
It was a tad distracting in hindsight.
Mhm.
It was a little rough.
And then, we were lucky that the school that we went to had lots of film courses. So more of an excuse for us to just get together and make absurd things.
Yeah, I got to give credit to my high school for all the things I don't like about school in general, like going to it. But like in high school, there was a lot of like film courses and electives. So we did pretty good. There was a science. I don't know if you took the same class, but there was a science fiction film course where we spent half the year watching Lord of the Rings and talking about it.
That's fantasy.
Yeah, science fiction and fantasy film course. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said just straight science fiction. I was like, I think elves are typically associated with the fantasy genre.
Lord of the Rings in space. So good, actually. There we go. We just came up with an idea. Someone script it. Anyway, so Paul, you graduated high school, and then what? What happened then?
Well, then I went to Hofstra for a whole year until I figured out that their film program wasn't really conducive to making movies. Like actually like making them while you're there. I was basically told like, yeah, by senior year, maybe you'll get to touch a camera. And I was like, well, that's a lot of money to be spending on not doing the thing that I want to be doing.
Yeah.
The whole point of film school, everyone knows when you go to film school, your degree is worth slightly less than the paper it's printed on. If you don't leave film school with a reel and some connections, it was all for naught.
Yeah.
So I ended up actually jumping over to 5 towns just because you got equipment, you can make things, you were given an excuse to make things, and that's what I wanted to do. So that's where I ended up meeting everybody who became a part of Lucky Six. We got to make some pretty nuts things. We got to go to some pretty crazy places. Like we shot a post-apocalyptic movie for The Last of Us in Centralia, which is a ghost town in Pennsylvania where a coal mine underneath it caught on fire like 60 years ago, and it's still burning. So there's just smoke coming out of the ground, which is really, really cool. Like we didn't have a lot of money to do these things, so we had to get everything done for real as much as we could.
I mean, that film is definitely awesome because you have the perfect set to do it on. I don't know if did you have permission to do that, but
no.
But like the ground had cracks in it, and like it just looked very like what a video game assumes a destructed world would look like.
Yeah, we also didn't have permission to break into Kings Park Psychiatric Center and film there, but better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Right. Yes. This isn't an admission of guilt. It's been too long. Don't come for us.
It's called the statute of limitations. It's up. So we're good at this point. I assume. I don't know. What do we think? I work in law enforcement or something? Why would I know?
Why would you know what the law is? Anyway, Paul's side job, his side hustle.
Side hustle. I'm a police officer in New York.
That's an interesting dynamic, and that's the only reason I rarely bring it up is because when you think someone's a police officer, you're like, that's all that person does. But now you have a situation where you're literally like, I would say it's like 50-50, where you're going to be a police officer, and when you come home, you're like working on film projects. But then also you have like a family and children and pets and like
so many pets, too many. I'm gonna say at this point. So I'm a cop, which is weird because not too many people make the jump from art school to the police academy. It's two very different tones, if we're going to be totally honest. And I hate school so much. So boy, was the police academy like a fun thing for me to do. It's like school, but they can yell at you and make you run, which is awful. So I'm kind of boring in real life, like from third grade on, I was always like, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to work in film and I'm going to be a police officer. And then I just did those things and like it worked out. Like I'm happy doing them. But the thing that attracted me to being a police officer, specifically where I work, is I work 12 days a month. It's not a lot of time. They're 12-hour days. So like I'm gone for a while, but I'm home more than I'm not, which is fantastic because it, number one, frees me up to do whatever I want. You know, I don't have to worry about like steady paycheck or health insurance, which is great. So now I can pick the jobs that I want to do completely independent of how well they pay. Like I haven't had to take a paycheck job in a very long time because if something doesn't interest me, I just don't do it. Unless it's like something where it's like a favor for a friend or something like that. So it's been quite freeing. And it's also fun because like I can see like the other side of being a cop now, and boy, do like most movies get it so hilariously wrong. I'm pretty sure they committed a war crime at the end of Bad Boys 2 because they just straight up like invaded another country and definitely can't do that like at all.
But come on, man, Martin Lawrence.
I think there's like a common thing among, you know, law enforcement, police officers, and like the medical profession and everything, that like when their jobs are portrayed on TV or in movies, they're like, this is so wrong. I don't understand how anyone's enjoying this right now.
Yeah.
Oh no, I get why they enjoy it. Bad Boys is so much more interesting than like 90% of what I do, which is just like taking people to the hospital and like doing auto accidents and domestic reports. It's really not that interesting. Occasional.
I mean, movies are notorious for kind of glorifying a lot of different things. There's entire channels on like YouTube or TikTok or things like that that are just like pointing out problems in movies that don't make any sense. So like there's one, for example, I saw the other night where they pulled this guy into an ambulance and they started talking about the thing that was like affecting him, and he started like bleeding and then coughing up blood, and it was the whole thing, and they explained it in the show. Like it's a show about like the people, like it's like 911 or whatever it is, and they're explaining how the reason for his this horrible thing that's happening to him is because of his air conditioner. And like then the person who is an actual person that answers like ambulance calls and goes on these ambulance rides is like, none of that exists. It doesn't make you bleed from your arm like that. Like what the hell? And it was just like pointing out that all of these shows are just making up drama to, you know, it's the whole point. It's the kind of the point. So
fine. It's just funny because like things from movies bleed into reality where like people I deal with think that things are a certain way because of movies and they're not. Like there's like dumb things like, oh, the whole chalk outline. That's never ever been a thing that they've ever done. That's a movie thing.
Not even in like the 1800s, they didn't draw a little chalk person.
No, they didn't. It's like, what is it? John Mulaney
Noir is completely ruined for me.
Yeah. Also, the whole one phone call thing, not a thing. Like, it just isn't.
Oh, I don't get a phone call if I commit a crime.
Well, there's this whole thing. Oh, you get one phone call. It's like, no, like I can let you use the phone if you want. Just let me know who you're calling, and I'll give you the phone. It's like not a big deal. Like it's just a lot of weird things. Although I will tell you, the biggest thing that bothers me, anytime they have any kind of law enforcement or military or anything on a movie, give me 1 second because I will need a prop to demonstrate this. I'm getting a prop, not a real thing.
Okay. Now for all you people who are just listening, you want to flip over to YouTube so you can see this.
Prop gun. Anytime anyone who like uses with limited exception, they're holding it and it's like that. Always finger on the trigger. That is like not a thing. It's always finger out of the trigger because literally all you need to do is like get startled and you're gonna let a round go. John Wick is one of the only movies I've seen that does not mess that up. But
yeah, the people that do the fight choreography for John Wick are nuts because they put it to the point where they're like, he has 32 rounds in that gun. Oh, you filmed him shooting 32 rounds. He has to reload now. That's part of the choreography.
One of my favorite little things about John Wick is he has this one gun and he only does it with this one gun where anytime he loads it, racks it, he goes like this and he looks inside, and what he's doing is he's checking to make sure that there's a round in the chamber. And he's doing it with that gun because that gun is notorious for jamming when you put a new clip in, and he does it every time he loads that gun, but that gun is the only time he does it.
That's
That's
pretty
the
cool.
level of authenticity like they decided to go with for that.
I like that, but also if you're John Wick, maybe choose a gun that's not notorious for jamming.
You know what? Where were you when they were writing John Wick?
Mhm.
I was right here. Come at me, Keanu Reeves. Let's go.
Oh, don't do
Yeah,
that. I think he
no.
lives in the city.
Yeah.
Don't do that, Jim. He can fight.
No, man. I don't
We
know.
love
I
you.
might just go find his dog and kick it and see what happens.
We're no longer friends.
I'm not going to kick a dog. I'm just going to
Thank you.
pretend to kick Keanu Reeves's dog.
So
well,
whatever. I'll
also-
fight a dog. I'm kidding.
We also won't be friends after you pretend to kick a dog, especially if it's Keanu Reeves' dog, because he will kill you for it.
That's true. We can't be
Yeah.
friends if I'm
It's very
dead.
well established.
Right.
He killed like
Uh,
80 people in the first movie, dude, over a dog. So slow that roll.
So,
mean, I
Paul,
would
Yeah.
do any of your friends on the police force, do they get into the film thing with you? Do they know about this whole other side of your life?
You try to hide these things, but then a picture of you dressed up as Spider-Man leaks, and it's just you kind of have to get ahead of it. No, everyone knows.
Hmm.
And weirdly enough, I expected it to go one way, like I expected to catch shit for it, but it turns out when you're like funny, most people are okay with it. And since most, like 90% of the content I put out is skewed towards humor, everyone was kind of cool with it. You know, it's a little easier to distance yourself emotionally from your stuff when like you're being funny. So someone doesn't like it, be like, it was a joke anyway, you know? I don't make too much serious content, suffice it to say. So
I also
man,
recall you have this like perfectly made Spider-Man suit.
I do.
I recall you using it for like kids' birthday parties and also.
Well, actually,
like,
I ended up getting put in touch with, I think it was BLI. Somebody was like, you should call in because they're looking for the Avengers for a kid's Make-A-Wish.
the
And
local
I got
radio
involved
station.
with, I got involved with the Suffolk County Make-A-Wish Foundation. So I got to do a Make-A-Wish as Spider-Man with the Avengers. And you helped me with that because you put me in touch with somebody who could be Tony Stark, an amazing cosplayer that we did a thing with. Remember, Mike?
Nope.
No, you don't remember that?
No, I vaguely remember this happening, and I remember the
We
conversation.
went to the city and he was dressed as Captain America. We did a whole shoot thing.
Oh yeah, okay. I do remember this now.
Yeah,
I just
should help
spoke to him
the
pretty
kids
recently.
dream come true.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's cool to know because I did so little, but apparently so
Sure.
much.
So much.
Aren't I just
So-
amazing?
Yes, you are. So yeah, like I got to visit a couple hospitals of Spider-Man 2 because my whole thing is like if I'm gonna buy something ridiculous, I have to come up with a justification for why I'm doing it.
Mhm.
And pretty much every Halloween I acquire a completely absurd costume that is just so unnecessary in every like facet. Like if you give me 1 second, I can show you a piece of this year's.
This is
love
really
this.
becoming a visual podcast, folks. There
But I
are-
love that there's so many props in this one.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is cool too. I'm liking the green screen studio and it's
Oh yeah, this
Oh, is this a Ghostbusters?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is my proton pack from this Halloween. I
excellent.
showed my daughter the first Ghostbusters, and her takeaway from it was that she wanted to be Dana Barrett for Halloween because my daughter's a weirdo. So we made her Dana Barrett as Zool, and my son was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and my wife and I were Ghostbusters.
Oh, stop. That must have been the most adorable photo ever.
Your son is also like, how old was he during Halloween? Like 2 months old or something?
No, he was like 4 or 5. You know, he was old enough.
Right.
I just can't wait for next Halloween because we're gonna make him like an adorable little Batman suit, like a cute little like crocheted one. And Megan and I are gonna dress up in like really nice like suits, dress and pearls, and we're both gonna have gunshot wounds.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
It's gonna be great.
Your daughter has to be like the thug that-
Catwoman or
or
Poison
something.
Ivy. Joan Chill, a little gender swapped Joe Chill.
Yeah.
We're making this is a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, that's both dark and hysterical, which I think is kind of the line you've walked since day one, which is amazing.
That's very much my brand. Dark
yeah.
and hysterical.
We've done zombie films. We've done quite a bit. We can definitely show a clip or two of me getting murdered if you have them.
Yes,
I
I'm
have.
all for it.
I'll send them along afterwards, just because I have to dig them out. But I do
Insert these
definitely
in the
have
middle
them.
here. Is there anything now that you're working on at the moment?
So right now, the big thing I'm working on is behind me, actually. So this is a studio space that I'm currently renovating. I moved, and when I moved, I kind of lost all my sets because they were all my old house. Like, I just had everything set up the way I wanted. So over a year ago, I moved here and I had this great space. Now I have a dedicated space to do things. And I was like, yes, this is great. I'll put the channel on a hiatus. I'll build this set and it's going to be awesome. And right around that time, the world decided to fucking collapse in on itself with a horrific pandemic, which for those listening, I live in New York, specifically Long Island, where I work as a first responder, and we kind of became the epicenter of a horrific pandemic. So my life got a little crazy. I also got COVID in March. So I was like one of the first people around here to get it back when we didn't 100% know what it was going to be like. So that ate up a month of my life. And then just work has been kind of insane. Being a cop during a pandemic is a very strange thing, especially when you do so much medical work. Like, I pretty much get exposed to COVID on a weekly basis, which is fun. So we're working on it. I'm finally like getting a little bit of free time so I can finish building the studio, because catching a pandemic level virus and then having a son all in the same like 2-month period really put a wrench in certain things. But we're going to be relaunching the podcast really soon. We're going to be relaunching another damn review show, which is my little baby, my little holdover from working with the Nostalgia Critic, which we still have, fortunately.
That's cool, man.
The Nostalgia Critic. I think my brother is a huge fan of the Nostalgia Critic. He brings him up almost all the time.
You tell your brother I'm sorry for being in the Hocus Pocus review. I apologize. I know it's the worst review and I happen to be in it, and I'm sorry he had to see me in the shower. Yeah, Lucky Six worked for the Nostalgia Critic for a couple of years, and then that whole website just imploded in the most fantastic way, and we were just kind of like, okay, we kind of Homer Simpson into the hedges, and we're like, all right, we're gonna just back out of this.
Well, so what's your review podcast? What do you guys review?
So we have the podcast, which is called On the Rocks. It's a conversational podcast about movies. It actually, our first episode was a traditionally filmed like pilot that we did at a bar, and it just became too expensive to do every week. So we decided to transition to an all audio version. And we kind of do a little bit of everything. What we'll typically do is we'll pick a topic for every episode. So every episode focuses on one thing, and we'll do a deep dive into it. We'll do like a good hour to 2 hour conversation about it, but it's very conversational in tone. It's done with my friend Dave Strano, who has a voice like just if Velvet and Liquid Gold had a child, it would be Dave Strano's voice. Fantastic. And sometimes we'll do like a little more kitschy kind of things. Like we did like a nostalgia review where I picked a nostalgic movie from my childhood and he picked one from his childhood, and we each had to watch it. Review.
Oh, he froze.
When did I freeze?
You still there?
I'm still here.
Yeah, you froze for a little bit.
Oh.
You both picked movies from your
childhood. Yeah,
that's
and had the other person rewatch them while we didn't. So like for me, I was like, okay, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla. I love that movie growing up. I'm not gonna watch it. You're gonna watch it, and then when we talk about it, I know. So one of us is talking from the movies from a perspective of nostalgia, and the other one just saw it and trying to see like where those lined up. It's very interesting and fun to do.
What was the movie you had to watch as well?
The Jeff Bridges Godzilla. I'm sorry, the Jeff Bridges King Kong.
Oh wow,
okay.
From the 70s?
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Wow. I mean, just because of the Godzilla versus Kong, or Kong versus Godzilla, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's interesting that you would watch the flip side of each movie. I'm excited for that movie too, because that movie looks bananas.
Ah, you son of a bitch. I see it there.
What does Godzilla eat? It looks that too.
Oh God.
I mean, those movies are astronomically insane. And I don't know how you feel too about a movie like that not hitting theaters. You're like, I'm gonna watch it on my tiny monitor. I gotta see Godzilla punch something at 100 feet in the air. I can't. I don't know.
Listen,
I'm just
if you
waiting
watch a movie on your phone, David Lynch will come to your house and he won't do anything. He'll just stand in the corner and smoke and look at you disapprovingly. You can't do it.
That's why I'm moving away. I'm moving and I'm not giving David Lynch my new address.
Don't tell David Lynch where you live.
Well, Jesus. I mean, I don't know, man. The movies that need to hit theaters are starting to come to just the internet. And that's cool because it's giving us something to do during the pandemic. But
yeah,
what does it mean for the film industry for these big, massive blockbuster movies that are like maybe going to hit theaters, maybe not? And that's really where they make their money.
I guess the real testament of like how this is going to shake out is what happens when the theaters open back up. Is this just something in the interim, or once theaters become a thing again, are we going to transition back to a traditional theater model? What I hope happens is, I don't know, because I'm torn. Because like Vudu does the whole thing where it's like $20 to rent the movie and you're renting it, and that's that. Whereas the real wrinkle is what HBO Max is doing. You know, like they have the balls to just be like, fuck it, it's out there, it's free. You've subscribed to HBO Max, here you go. Here's Wonder Woman 1984, rock and roll. And it's like it's consumer friendly, it's awesome. But I worry maybe this will be the death of more mainstream like theater chains, and now like the more niche ones like your Alamo Draft Houses might fare better. Because there's always going to be an appetite for the theater going experience, and like you said, it's an experience. You know, like you need to see some of these things blown up huge with the crazy sound and with as many, you know, hardcore cocktails as they're willing to bring you in a dark room.
Yeah. The problem is the more niche it becomes, the more expensive it also might become. So all of a sudden we're paying $40 to go to the movies because the experience is, you can't experience that watching it on your 20-inch monitor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but is it really that much of a difference now? But like before, we didn't go to the movies that much because of how expensive the tickets end up being. It's not just it's the tickets, it's the concessions, it's all of that to make it, you know, it's was pretty expensive anyway.
Hey, I always went with empty pockets and filled them at Duane Reade with a bunch of candy, and then go to the movies, enjoy the movie. But I mean, you know, I'd only go to see the big, huge blockbuster movies. I'm not going to go see certain things. I mean, like, unless it's like a film project, a friend was like, hey, I worked on this, then I would go see it in the theater or something like that. But most of the time, if I was going to go see a movie at a theater, it was because it's something larger than life. It's like the
A
event.
Nolan film, something that,
Yeah, Nolan films, like superhero movies, big action blockbusters. Anything else, I feel like you can get away with putting it on HBO Max or Netflix or Hulu or anything like that. But the same can also be said for when you put something on HBO Max. Their subscriptions went up tremendously when Wonder Woman, the new one, came out. So I don't know. I think it's going to move in both directions where they'll find a balance, but I don't think movie theaters are going to be the same no matter what.
I think they're going to have to adopt a more dine-in theater approach, because people are willing to spend more money on concessions when the concessions are real food and like cocktails and like nice beers. Like I think you're going to see the downfall of your basic bitch, like going in, getting popcorn and spending $30 on it. And you're going to see the rise of things like the Alamo Draft House, where it's like, no, like this is a full experience. Like you are getting a legitimate dinner, and like we're going to play all the new movies, but sometimes we're going to do something fun. Like we're going to play all of Edgar Wright's movies back to back, or we're going to do like a screening of Mad Max where the cast is going to be there. Like, I think that's how you combat it. Like you dig in your heels, you go the more niche route, and you subsidize it, not via ticket costs, but by serving real food.
That might be a way.
But I don't know. I went to art school, not business school. So one of the big, like, steady jobs I've been doing for the last couple of years is I've been working with a group called Conjured Media, which basically what we do is we create like bespoke ad campaigns for haunted houses, which sounds incredibly niche, and it is, but it's really fun. So, for example, like Schmidt's Farm on Long Island, for like the last, it was like 5 years, we've done their commercial, and I've been personally killed in 3 of them, at least. Although this year I got to be the killer, which was a lot of fun. I don't know how I end up acting in all these things. They just keep putting me in front of a camera, even though I'm just like the special effects guy. But there it is. So yeah, like, I had my throat slit a couple years back. It was a whole hoot. So they bring us on, and what we do, because so many commercials are bad, like they're just bad. It's just like, oh wow, cool. You showed me video of inside of your haunted house attraction. Neat. I guess I'll do that. No, that's not what we do. We create an actual like short film and like series of short films, like completely narrative things where there's cast and stories and everything. And we'll do it with like a character that they're going to use that year. And we'll just build the whole thing around that. And we'll give them like 5 or 6 30-second to minute long short horror films that they can then throw up on social media and, get people to come on down and check out their stuff. It's cool because it's very creatively satisfying as far as like a commercial job goes, because it's very laissez-faire. It's like we come to them with like, okay, here's what we're going to shoot. And they give us the money and we make it, and they get people to come in. We get to basically make a horror movie, and it's a lot of fun.
Are these original characters too?
Yes, always.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really fun.
Yes. Like we have this like butcher character that we were using for a haunted house in Alabama, I want to say. And that's the other great thing. We can work with any haunted house in the country because we don't need to go there to do anything. We can shoot everything locally and then basically ship them a package, like ready to go. I believe the only thing that the Alabama haunted house said that we couldn't do is nothing satanic, for reasons which are obvious. It's Alabama. But yeah, we created this butcher character for them to use. And he walks around like a meat hook, and it's a lot of fun. But
I can get involved with them.
So the company was actually started by one of the Lucky Six members. And it was just one of those things where it was like he needed somebody to do special effects, and that evolved into me acting in them. And actually last year I ended up camera operating for them because our camera operator fell during a take and fucked up his arm. And we're not going to be like, here, hold this $20,000 camera with your arm that doesn't really work. And
yeah,
so stuff happens,
adapt or die.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that you could step in, promoted through injury.
Yeah, that happens apparently.
Sure. But yeah, man, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about some of the movie choices that you presented to us, because
you'll notice
you had like 8, and
I wanted to have options,
Yeah, you suggested right away. You suggested Drive, which was an awesome movie that we saw in season 1. We already talked about that. Yep, there it is. You have that leather. Do you still have that white leather jacket too, or is it leather? Or?
Not only do I have the jacket from the movie, but I actually, embarrassingly, I met Nicholas Winding Refn, and he, as I'm sitting there, went on this whole diatribe about how like he loves the movie Drive, but he gets very frustrated because people think that everything he's going to make is going to be that way, and how he had ended up kind of souring the movie for him. And then he pauses and he goes, "Are you wearing the jacket from the movie?" And I just kind of had to be like, yeah. Sorry. No, he was really cool, actually.
So then he made you bury the jacket and never reveal it to anyone else ever again.
Pretty much. No, I was just like, will you sign all my Drive stuff, even though you just said you caused you to have an existential crisis? Yeah, I love Drive. Such a good.
And then you had a bunch of other movie suggestions too, but eventually we landed on Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes.
And that is a wild movie. Talk about a crazy movie, but is it even a sequel? Is it a sequel? Is it a
prequel? Technically, no?
No. So in keeping with Mad Max, it is both a sequel and a remake and whatever. Don't worry about it. Fuck you. Just watch it. That's pretty much how every single one of the movies has been. Mad Max is an interesting franchise because it always reminded me of something like Evil Dead, where like when you think about Evil Dead, for example, the things that come to mind usually are the chainsaw hand, the groovy, the shotgun, but none of that is in the first movie. Literally none of that. To the point that when I saw the first movie, I was disappointed by Ash being a little bitch because I was like, I don't get it. Where's the chainsaw hand? All of the iconography started with the second movie. You know, the first movie, they just didn't have the money to make it this post-apocalyptic thing. The first movie's really just evenly tempered. Max goes on a vacation and his family is killed. And then it's kind of the apocalypse, but not really. And then the second movie just is like, now it's post-apocalyptic. And we're going to kind of retcon some of the stuff with Max, but it's not important. Also, his car gets destroyed in that movie. Cut to the third movie. The car's back. Don't worry about it. And this actor who played someone in the second movie, he's back as a completely different character. Once again, don't think about it. And they just keep hitting the reset button with every movie. And it's kind of freeing because it's like, when you're dealing with a series where madness is inherently part of it, it's kind of nice that they kind of play fast and loose with the continuity because it matches up with the character's mental state where you never really know what happened. And they continue that with the fourth one to the fact, like, so the bad guy in the fourth one, in Morton Joe, that actor plays the bad guy in the first Mad Max movie. He plays Toe Cutter. And it's just, once again, you're doing that thing where you're just bringing actors back. They're playing different people.
I think people love stuff like that too. The one where you were talking about Evil Dead, the one movie I thought about too was Terminator, where the first one is awesome and iconic, but when people think about Terminator, they really just imagine more of the stuff from Terminator 2.
They don't think of Arnie as the bad guy.
Yeah, they think, oh, he's the robot, but he's starting to get feelings and he's going to protect John Connor. That's the movie I always go back to where I'm like, that's Terminator to me, but it's not the first Terminator, you know? No. Mad Max is a crazy movie, and
nothing about it should work.
Nothing about it should have worked. Visually amazing. Like I watch this movie still, and I'm just like visually blown away by it. And the special effects, and I know some of them are not even some. A majority of the cars are just practical effects, which I think is one of the biggest feats of the movie is that they actually blew up a lot of these cars.
Yeah, most of the visual effects come from set extensions, which is like the modern day version of matte painting, painting out wires and stuff like that. They did a lot of removing stuff and not too much adding stuff, which is great. Like the physicality of everything when you do things practically is just so much better. I have so much I can say about this movie, but yeah, it's and it's cool because they ended up making like a really progressive movie, which is weird because you don't look at something that's like supposed to be this dumb over the top action movie where everyone's wearing S&M gear and think, oh, it's about like people being used as commodities. It's about people being turned into objects.
Right.
And that's the main running theme from the movie is people as objects.
I feel like if you had to describe the plot of Mad Max Fury Road, it would be a group of women escaping their oppressors, led by Charlize Theron. And also, Mad Max is here. Like, he's just kind of there for that ride.
But that's also keeping with most of the Mad Max movies. Max is never the driving force of his movies. He's always just there. Like in the second one, he's not the driving force of that. He just stumbles upon this fight that's happening. And that's typically how it shakes out. But yeah, they even do smart things. Like they come up, so you know that distracting thing in action movies where all the women are just gorgeous, like distractingly gorgeous, where it doesn't really make sense. They make sense in this movie because they are the treasures of this horrible warlord, and he's using them as breeders, I think they refer to them. So it would make sense that they'd all be like supermodels. Like they put that level of forethought into stuff, which is great.
Yeah, there's a reason these are the 5 or 6 women that he's kept in a basement locked up.
Yeah. Under
great conditions, you know. Really, I mean, you know, just
first cell, it didn't look that bad.
No, it looked pretty bad. It looked pretty rough. But you know, I mean, this movie's wild. It's definitely, I think, a feat of like special effects and visual effects. I can't say the writing was like blew me away or anything, but it's more the actors and their talent kind of took that and made it not matter, because Tom Hardy can say so much with his face without saying a word.
I mean,
And that I
yeah.
think that's the beauty of Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron as being probably the best actor in this entire movie. You know, all of them kind of blew me away with their
I think
performances.
that's something about action movies that I've been starting to notice, is that you really don't need. This actually had some pretty strong themes in the film itself anyway, but like you really like the script itself, except like minus writing out every single, like the car jumps over here and then there's an explosion over here. The script is probably really, really short.
Yeah.
Because there's most of it, it's a feat of visual effects, and it's just a stunning visual film first and foremost. And when I first started watching this, I thought it was like the Dark Crystal had a baby with a monster truck show, and I couldn't wrap my head around exactly what was happening at first.
Well, Victoria texted me when she started the movie and said, I shouldn't have been eating when I started this, because in the first 5 minutes of the movie, Tom Hardy eats a two-headed lizard, and then you see a man covered in boils getting his armor put on.
Yeah.
And it was just like the grossest parts, some of the grossest parts of that movie.
Yep.
Besides, Immortan Joe, spoiler alert, getting his entire face ripped off.
Yeah, that was a lot.
That was brutal.
We didn't know that we were in for something special when the movie opens up with them destroying his iconic car yet again. For the third time, they've destroyed the Interceptor, but they literally do it in the first 5 minutes. Where it's like, yeah, we know what Mad Max is to you guys. We're just going to kind of throw all this out. Like, just trust us on this one. It's going to be badass.
Did you guys ever play the Mad Max video game that came out pretty much around the same time?
It's actually pretty good.
I heard it was actually low key pretty good. I might have to give it a try, but I think they kind of leaned into like the visuals of this most recent movie.
Yes.
And then there's a lot of stuff like you have to build out your car and make it really crazy and dangerous and do all this crazy stuff. I might have to give it a try.
Definitely check it out.
What else with this movie was nuts? I mean, the whole War Boys thing with just there was all these things, like you're trying to imagine a way that the world could collapse so drastically that War Boys would like believe shit like that. Like people would grow up thinking, if I die, I'll be born again, but in between I'll be sent to Valhalla to chill with these heroes. I just have to spray my mouth with silver paint and jump into dangerous situations and I'm good. And that just blew my mind that was a thing. But Nicholas Hoult, talk about him.
Yeah, that was an incredible performance.
Yeah, that turn is great, where it's like he's just the most obnoxious little brainwashed thing, and by the end it's like, oh, he grew. Like everyone has there's actual genuine arcs in this movie, which is really, really great. And it all comes back to that whole theme of like people as objects. Like he was just a soldier. Max starts out this movie as literally a blood bag. He's an object to be used, and that is it. And the running line is that, we are not things. And it's about people just gaining their agency and fighting back via a single chase scene that lasts the entirety of the film.
Yeah. Well, people are doing Cirque du Soleil, like flips and everything on these big like stilt things. And some of the effects and the stunts in this were insane, completely insane.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
And the special effects makeup. Like the guitar guy.
The doof warrior.
Yeah, the doof warrior that had no eyes and just played guitar all the time on a trapeze. Like that's amazing.
They need war music, obviously.
I guess. Sure. Yeah.
And to get back to the visuals, one of the ways that they maintain their continuity and they make it very watchable for the viewer, I don't know if you've noticed, but the movie during some of the action scenes really cuts very quickly. And there's a lot of stuff going on. If you go back and rewatch it, during those sequences, everything is centered in the frame. So your eyes never need to move anywhere. You can just look in the center, focus, and every single thing is right there. So you're getting all the information you need, which is amazing. He must have learned that on Babe in the City, the second Babe Pig movie. That's probably where he picked it. Either that or Happy Feet, where he learned that trick. Can Can we just take a minute and appreciate that this guy, the last Mad Max movie he made was like 35 or 40 years ago, goes on to make kids movies, and then is just one day like, you know what, that thing I did like 40 years ago, I think I'm going to go back to that. And like the production was a total mess. They shot that movie like years before it came out. It was in post-production. It was famously troubled. If you go back and look at like some of the original press photos, it had a totally different color grade. It looked all muted and like monochrome, did not look good. And then it comes out and it's amazing. And it's like he didn't miss a day. I don't know how that happens. It's like a miniature control.
When it's personification of we'll fix it in post, but it actually worked.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Grandpa made an action movie. He was like goddamn 70 when he made it.
Yeah. I mean, me and Victoria were also talking off camera about some of the problems, like Tom Hardy and some of the cast members. Yeah, they didn't really get along, and
it was also like an infamously difficult shoot because you're shooting in the actual desert, which is going to definitely put people on edge to begin with. But
yeah, they're hot, they're tired. Like,
well, I think they both talked about like that they didn't realize like how much pressure each other they each were under. Like Tom Hardy having to step into this iconic role played by Mel Gibson was, you know, a crap ton of pressure on him. Charlize Theron taking on this, you know, hugely feminine, powerful role was also intense. And then with all of the stress and everything of the production and not really knowing, trying to get what the director, George Miller, what he wanted out and not being able to communicate very well, it was just an overall really stressful set. But I mean, it, to their credit, everyone behind the scenes and in front of the camera both, you don't see it come through the film at all. It's you don't feel any tension that isn't supposed to be there.
I truly couldn't imagine anyone but Charlize Theron in that role. There's definitely like powerful women out there, but she just nailed it. For me, she's like the absolute standout. It's why they're making a spin-off movie just for her character, which I guess we kind of already know the story, but I'm sure that they're gonna write something and make it more to it, kind of a thing. But that's pretty interesting that they're doing that. It's like a prequel. Yeah.
All right, so hot take time. Is Mad Max Fury Road the best feminist action movie?
I'm going to go out on a limb and definitely say no, but I do. I mean, you can't say that it's the best feminist action movie, but then also be like, and here's Tom Hardy on the cover of it. Because when you think it's literally a movie called Mad
we already know, like, he's not really the main character.
No, but they still have to put Mad Max. They have to.
Yeah, no, they do. They do.
You know,
if this movie was titled Furiosa or something else, or, you know, I mean, they're making that movie, but I don't know.
Action movies are not my forte. They're not really in my wheelhouse that much. But, you know, going off of Jim's point, I like the idea of the story of women taking back their agency, but what would make a really great feminist action movie would be one where they don't have to fight to be seen as equals in the first place. Like, make an action movie where Charlize Theron is playing Mad Max's role, where she's there to help. She's not there to like save women from the horrible thing that women go through. Like, whatever role you're going to write for a man, just flip it and make it a woman and go from there. And that'll be the most feminist
I
thing.
think we should then watch John Wick and then also watch Atomic Blonde right after it, because it's basically the same thing, except no one kicked Charlize Theron's dog. Decided to be John Wick and be a badass and be Atomic Blonde. I haven't even seen that movie, and I know that.
Yeah, she is just incredible.
Yeah, she's nuts. I know for a fact too that she did a lot of her own stunts and all the fight choreography. She's not even like, I didn't want to say she's old, but she's not like 30 or under. You know, it's tough to be doing crazy fight chore. Like, I can't even get up to go to the bathroom without being like, "Ugh," and like all the aches and pains in my body. And I forget how old she is, but you know, it's tough to be doing crazy stunts and things like that, and also pretend you don't have an arm. That shit was amazing. I didn't even register it until halfway through the film. I was like, oh, she has one arm. That's insane.
Someone who does their own stunts and also gets into fights regularly because of their job. boy, is that is taxing on the body.
Right.
Like,
She is how old? Can't do math. 25 plus 20. She's 46 years old.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. But she's definitely one of the most talented actresses that I know.
I mean, I don't think it's that crazy if you keep yourself in shape like most Hollywood people do. Like Liam Neeson is still doing this shit and he's 60. So
yeah, but I don't see Liam Neeson doing somersaults and spins and fighting Tom Hardy.
No.
That's not a thing.
No, to be fair, yes. But I mean,
Liam Neeson's grabbing the person and going, "Give me back my daughter." And that's it. That's all the fight. And then he goes like this, and then there's a stunt guy doing all of his shit. But he's also 7 feet tall or something, so he's just immediately wins.
He's a bit of a gangster motherfucker.
But yeah, this movie was nuts. It was definitely fun to watch it again. I haven't seen it probably since it first came out. So it was fun to kind of catch all those things again. Like sometimes it's the little things that you don't really notice. But like you said, I did like how it was shot, and I didn't notice that it was like all the action was happening center frame. But that's a cool filmmaker tool too, because it's a way of speaking to your audience and saying this is what you should be focusing on. Because if you have to look over here now to see something different, it's going to take you a second. So the shot has to be longer. And then that kind of dictates how you make your movie. But it almost sounds like they made it like as if they were filming a graphic novel, which is cool.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast with us.
All right,
Thank you for sharing all your stuff. We're going to share all your social media handles, your YouTube page, so that people can get a look at all the cool stuff that we've been talking about, all the special effects that you do. And thank you for suggesting Mad Max Fury Road. That was actually a new one for me. I hadn't seen it, so that was exciting. And thank you just again for sharing your time.
Thank you very much for having me. This was a blast.
Now seems like a perfect time to take a musical break, courtesy of Limelight.
Yes, and if you want to watch some of these performances live, you can download the app from the App Store, or you can click the link in the description below. Check out Limelight today. Thank you again to Limelight for providing some musical break in between the podcast. And let's get more into the nitty gritty of Mad Max Fury Road.
Mhm.
I'll start. I like this movie. I like it. It's a lot, but I like it. It's crazy. It's hectic. It's even though we talked about Mad Max being like the main character and that he's on the cover, I'm realizing that the poster for this movie is Charlize Theron, and Tom Hardy's like in the back with a mask on. So I'm realizing that, but it is called Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah.
This movie's nuts.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. How did this movie make you feel?
Well, I have to be honest, it's not my cup of tea. That is not to say that it's not a good movie and it's not well done. It's just not something that I could ever it's not something I'm going to watch again.
Where did we lose you? Where
probably right at the beginning when he ate that two-headed chameleon thing. I was like, okay, I don't know where we're at here.
Yeah.
But I think that visually it is a very stunning film. It's done extremely well. The acting performances have to be on point in order to sell this insane world that we're in, and they are fantastic. The story itself, like I said earlier, I'm noticing more with action films that like I'm guessing the script itself is only like yay big as compared to like how long it takes to shoot all these action sequences and everything. But that's not to say that the story itself was devoid of content. The story itself was actually pretty strong. Didn't feature on Mad Max. He was just kind of a voyeur to this situation, which apparently I've never seen the other ones. Tends to be how it happens. You're following along Max as he gets pulled into these other situations.
Mm-hmm.
But all that being said, not my cup of tea, but I can see why people who do love these films or like action films like this would really appreciate and latch onto it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely my cup of tea. This is my cup of tea, soda, beer, wine. I don't know what it is, but I'll drink it. It was wild from start to finish. I think just if you look at it from any technical standpoint as well, it's just easy to say this movie stands out in a cool way. From the editing to the color grading to the special effects. Halfway through the movie, I went, oh shit, she has one arm. And I already had seen the movie and I knew that, but I forgot it because it's so well done. I didn't even think about it because she's got this like metal contraption arm with like one finger, and and she's just so capable as well with it on that. And the special effects were so well done that I just didn't even notice it. But even if we're not talking about technical things, I think the movie just is really well put together. Because like you said, the script has to be this long, but if you included all the subtext or the reading between the lines type of content that's involved in that script, it's a lot. It's kind of a crazy thing that these actors can bring out all these different themes and ideas and performances and things in their performance that aren't even on the page. You have to have crazy talented actors for something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact that they really don't have a ton of dialogue. I think Nicholas Hoult has the most dialogue out of all of them. His character is very much a talker.
What a day. What a lovely day.
Witness me.
Witness me. When that movie first came out, a group of me and my friends would just be like, hey, what's up, man? Witness me. Just screaming for no reason because they would just spray paint their faces. That shit was wild. The ideas that they came up with to put this whole thing together, just totally nuts, totally mad.
And I have to give it to the filmmakers that if the set was really as fraught and difficult as it was, to still come out of that whole thing with this product at the end of it is just a testament to everyone that contributed. I was reading an article about all the difficulty with behind the set between Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron. And at this point, they've both kind of said, it was both of us. It wasn't, I think they've both moved on from it at this point. But also reading into like what the director, George Miller, was going through at the time and trying to get this vision from here onto the screen. Especially when he hasn't done a Mad Max film in years. It's been a long time since he did one of these.
Like Paul was saying, the guy did like totally other random kids movies in between. So all of a sudden he's like, I'm gonna go back to my roots and do this crazy movie about car chases and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Totally nuts. This movie stars Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, Nicholas Hoult, Hugh Keys-Byrne, who I don't think I said that right, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Riley Keough, Zoe Kravitz, just all the people with the most hard to say names ever, Abby Lee and Courtney Eaton, amongst another, just a large group of crazy talented actors and actresses that are like side characters too.
Mm-hmm.
There's people in this movie too that they definitely sought after that have certain looks, because like namely one of the actors, the two sons of Immortan Joe,
mm-hmm.
one of them is this huge muscle bound psycho monster,
mm-hmm.
but he has some kind of respirator system built in. He's basically Darth Vader. But more jacked. If Stone Cold and Darth Vader had a baby, it'd be this guy. And then there's the other son, who's 2.5 feet tall and is kind of confined to a chair.
Mm-hmm.
That's not special effects and makeup. They found a real person, which is bananas that they found these people and that they're, talented actors and able to pull off something like this. So crazy that they found people like this throughout the entire movie too. Like, people that have a little bit of an odd deformity, but they use it for the benefit of the film. I think that's a cool thing to do.
I mean, I think that, that becomes a whole other conversation of like, getting someone who actually has the disability or has like, like I'm sure there's an actor out there that has a single arm that could have done the role, of Furiosa, Charlize Theron. Not to say that Charlize Theron shouldn't have, there's like all of these questions of like, is it ableism? Is it not? But
right.
It's nice to see that they are in these instances trying to find people that do fit these roles, and portray them.
Yeah, I know there was a bit of controversy with Bryan Cranston playing a guy in a wheelchair in one of his recent films. And that to me was kind of crazy, because I was like, but he's an actor. And I mean, like, I don't think you need to find someone who's in a wheelchair to do that. But if you want people to see your movie, Bryan Cranston's the person you call. So it's a trade-off. I think,
it's tough but then you get to the point where you're like, well, there are actors who are in wheelchairs. This is one of the only roles ever written for someone in a wheelchair. They don't write roles for these people that often, and you're not giving it to them.
True. It's a double-sided coin. It is sides to it.
And it's then you get into the whole, well, the whole thing that Scarlett Johansson brings up all the time of like, I'm an actor, I should be able to play anything. Well, we have to wait till everyone has an equal seat at the table, and then maybe we can start talking about certain things that people can
Scarlett
play.
Johansson is also the one playing the roles that she shouldn't,
Well, exactly, yeah.
Awesome playing Black Widow in the Marvel series, because you're playing this white woman, but not when you're in some other movie playing an Asian woman, or
maybe you shouldn't be
taken by
playing
an
a
Asian
trans character because you're not.
But
like there's all those things.
The other side of that coin is she puts butts in seats.
Yep.
And so does Bryan Cranston. So do all these actors. So does Charlize Theron.
Uh-huh.
So, do you want your film to make money?
Well, I
kind of have the point. So
I do think there is an argument to be made that when you're making a Mad Max film and you put Tom Hardy in the role of Mad Max, whoever you put in that other role is not going to increase or decrease seats. You already have name recognition.
That is true.
If in the Kevin Hart film, with Bryan Cranston, you already had Kevin Hart. Like, I mean, one of the things that we're going through and a lot of independent films go through is like, you need to get at least one named actor, just one, in any role, no matter how big or small, so that you can push their name and get into film festivals. Okay. People will go see that film based on that single name recognition alone. You don't have to have, like, sure, when you see a cast like Knives Out, it's like, oh my God, everyone in this film is a superstar. That's incredible. But you would have gone to see Mad Max if it was just Tom Hardy or just Charlize Theron alone.
Yeah, probably.
You know, so there is that argument to be made that, you know,
And then
if
there's
you
clearly
have,
people like you that saw the trailer and said, nah, I don't want to see that.
yeah.
He ate a two-headed lizard. I'm good.
I mean, I don't think that was in the trailer,
No, but you
but
got
still.
the idea of when you watched the trailer and you were like, oh, this is what this is about?
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
But are you glad you watched it? Even though maybe it wasn't your cup of tea? Are you glad you're broadening that horizon and watching some different movies outside of your norm?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, it's good to see these things. And I think I also think it's good to be able to have discussions about films where you may not have necessarily liked it, but you can appreciate what is good about it, even if it's not your particular taste. I think we get into, you know, people can get into a lot of conversations a lot of the time about how, like, well, I didn't like the film, so it's bad. And it's like, that's not necessarily true. Just because you didn't like the film doesn't make it bad. It just makes it not your taste.
Right.
Um,
Those people are just not smart enough to say. It's not even that they're not smart. It's that they don't know films that well that they can say what's good about it. They just instinctively think, oh, didn't like, must be bad.
yeah.
You know? It just goes straight to there.
Mhm.
There's movies that are so bad that people love them. You know,
Yeah.
like The
Yeah.
Room.
Yeah.
You want to go there? I did
I
not
mean,
hit her. I did not. You
I
know,
mean,
people.
that
It's like
movie
a
has
cult
such
following.
a cult following that
Uh,
it sparked the James Franco film that came out about the making of that terrible film.
The Disaster Artist is
Yeah.
so good. It's
Mhm.
such a good movie, and I wish we could suggest our own movies for this podcast, and maybe that's something we should do, so that we can, I don't know, because some of these movies that we bring up and we talk about on the podcast, I'm like, God, I want to talk about that movie. Can I force people to suggest like The Disaster Artist? But then if you watch The Disaster Artist, do you also have to watch The Room to really get it?
I mean, to be honest, I haven't seen The Disaster Artist. So it is something I should put on my list.
I
But
think that's interesting because I saw The Room first,
mhm.
and then years later, The Disaster Artist came out. So I'd be curious to know if you watch The Disaster Artist first and then see what they're talking about after, if that'd be make it different.
Well, and you know, I haven't seen The Room all the way through. I've seen the famous clips of, you know, you're tearing me apart, Lisa, all that stuff, but like I haven't seen it the whole way through. So I don't know, maybe that's something I'll figure out, is whether I should, you know, we'll flip a coin and say, do I pick watching Disaster Artist first and then watch The Room, or do I watch The Room first and then reward myself for getting through that by watching The Disaster Artist?
I don't know. I mean, The Disaster Artist definitely kind of takes all the things that happened in The Room and then flips it, and then also finds the funny side of it because it's James Franco and Seth Rogen and all those guys. But also has a lot of big dramatic moments. But you know, but I think that's the struggle too of when you watch a movie like those or like Mad Max Fury Road, do you have to see the other three Mad Maxes to get what's going on? In this case, not really, because
Well,
the Mad Max storyline has always been kind of like separate entities, and then Mad Max is just going along for the ride, which is kind of cool, which makes it easy to kind of do like a weird soft reboot on the whole franchise.
yeah.
You can't do that for like Marvel or DC because they're so interwoven, all these movies, all the plots, they tie in together in such a way so that if all of a sudden Captain America doesn't show up, if you don't write him off, you can't just have him not appear.
I mean, it would have to be, for stuff like that, it would have to be like what they do with Spider-Man every 4 years. You know, would have to be like a brand new rebooting of the universe as a whole in order
Right.
to do that, instead of like trying to take the universe that they're in the middle of and do that.
I think that's the struggle too. I mean, DC Comics kind of gets themselves into a problem where they'll put out a good movie.
Mhm.
It's like, okay.
Mhm.
Then they'll put out a really bad movie where you're like, yeah, that wasn't great. But you can't like undo it because it's part of the connected universe with all the other films that you don't want to get rid of.
Well, it's like what we talk
So,
about with Star Wars all the time, of what
yeah,
they did with the most recent trilogy. You know, they decided to take a risk and go a completely different way with Ryan Johnson, and then
Ugh,
they wanted to
ugh.
undo that.
Don't even say his name.
Hey, he did Knives Out. He does good stuff.
Yeah, but he didn't for Star Wars.
Like, I honestly didn't mind the second one, but we always get into this argument. But anyway, but I'm just saying that, you know, if you can't spend all your time like undoing that stuff, so you make a bold choice and you just go with it. But like, you know, for Mad Max, it was you know, like I remember when Paul suggested Evil Dead 2, and we were like, do we have to see the first one first before we watch it?
Apparently not. Apparently not. So, one thing I did want to point out with the DC films, because those films I was talking about how they can't, you know, undo any of them. Weirdly enough, they are.
Yeah.
They have that Justice League movie re-releasing rated R, and it's going to be like a 4-hour cut of the movie, which is unheard of. They've never taken like a mega blockbuster movie and just said, we're going to fix this. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the extenuating circumstances with Zack Snyder's personal loss in the middle of that, I think they're really leaning into kind of having, you know, because when you have not only the fans clamoring for it, you also have the cast clamoring for it and
Sure.
saying,
It's a
you know,
bit of
this.
supply and demand. It's
Mhm.
if there's enough demand for it,
Mhm.
studio will say, you know what, we'll double down and make the money on this movie again. We already filmed half of it. Let's
Yeah.
film another half and just make more money. But I'd love to see scenarios where films that had incredible potential
Mhm.
and just somehow dropped the ball. I'd love to see scenarios where film companies are willing to take that risk and come back to them and say, all right, well, we screwed up, but let's give this another shot and do it the right way with more talented filmmakers, or take our time and do it right. Because I remember that movie too was rushed and they had to do reshoots, and Henry Cavill had this crazy mustache for a different movie that he wasn't allowed to shave, and it just became such a huge problem. And instead of just waiting a little bit and putting it out a little bit later, they rushed it and it just didn't work.
Well, and if we can take anything from the world we live in now, with, you know, everything being put on hold and everything being pushed back, you know, it's that hopefully that we can, at least for a little while, because I know it won't be permanent when we get back to quote unquote normal, if we can break that cycle of like, you know, of rushing to put something out. I think, I mean, we run into that with video games, like with they rushed Cyberpunk so badly that it's become the worst disaster of any video game ever. And
I don't know
now,
if they would rush. I don't know if rushing is the word, because
well,
they've been
but
working on it
after,
for 8 years.
right, but they clearly weren't done. And
Yeah.
I mean, part of it comes from people not understanding what it takes to make a video game, or, you know, make a big action movie and make this stuff, all the computer, like the detail that goes into it after the fact, that, you know, people who are fans of Naughty Dog and people who are fans of you know, Rockstar are like, take your time, please, just take your time, put it out right. We don't want to go through this again. And it's the same, you know, it's the same with films. It's like, if you would have just taken your time, you're not going to lose your fan base. I don't understand the intense need for like this rush of like, you're afraid that people are going to lose interest.
Well, I think that's one of the few benefits of the whole pandemic and quarantine, is that we've all been kind of forced to just sit back for a little bit and just chill. And a lot of us just went to working from home, but then there's us who are like, I guess we'll just do this podcast and sit around and wait for this to blow over. And there's a lot of time now. We're kind of getting to a point where we're running out of stuff to watch, and we're all clamoring for when's the next thing. So whenever they announce like the new big show that's coming out, everyone eats it up right away because they're like desperate for content. And I think that's because we were so spoiled with it beforehand, because it was every week there was another huge movie coming out or another show on, and what you could have 8 things going on at once. I couldn't keep up with it. And I was just watching like the superhero crap, you know? So there was a point where, you know, someone would be like, "You gonna watch this show?" And I'm like, "No, man, I have to draw a line. I only have so much time. I have to commit to one universe. Like I can't watch all the DC and all the Marvel." And that's just all the superhero shit, let alone all the other cool stuff and content and movies coming out.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think now everyone's just going to calm down a bit and hopefully focus on the quality as opposed to just pumping out and just getting the money. Because I hate when a movie does good as well. Like say there's a good first movie and then they just crank out a shitty sequel because they know everyone's going to go see it.
Yeah.
It works for movies that are like comedies, like silly comedies, like Ted.
Yeah.
Ted is a stupid movie about a stuffed animal walking around with Peter Griffin's voice, saying stuff in a funny accent. Okay, you can crank out a shitty sequel for that one, and I'll still think it's great because it's a stupid, silly movie. But anything that's like serious, just don't rush it. Just take time, make sure it's right.
With the next Mad Max movie that they're coming out with, that's not coming out till what, 2023? I'm sure it got pushed back probably a little bit with the pandemic. They probably would have jumped on that a little earlier.
Are they making a Mad Max sequel, or is
They have both the Furiosa movie, the Furiosa origin story movie, and then they also have another Mad Max movie on the way.
That Furiosa prequel is supposedly starring Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Hemsworth, and definitely not going to try to pronounce his name. I'm going to do it anyway. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. I think I was right the way I said that. But these are all talented people, and they're going to bring something interesting to this film. I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited. I liked this movie, so I'm excited to see what kind of a sequel they bring up and see where they take Mad Max. It's cool to see because I think, you know what, too, sometimes when there's a film that comes out that might not even be good, it doesn't even have to be a good movie, but there's like one standout character that's really great. They'll make a prequel or a sequel, or they'll flesh out that character and make them their own thing, which is cool. So they do that a lot with like superhero movies, where they'll have a big movie and then like Wonder Woman would be so cool that, oh, she has to get her own movie because she's great. You know, that's kind of where that kind of happens. I think superhero movies just changed a lot in the filmmaking world. It's easy to make other versions of things.
Well, because they, you know, if you get a dedicated fan base and you turn out a consistently good product, people will come back and see everything that you put out there.
Yeah.
So, you know, with Mad Max, you know, Charlize Theron's character Furiosa, she essentially was kind of the star of this film. She was the driving force behind it. And
literally spent the whole movie driving.
You know, so people want to see more of that character, and then with the way that they've built this world where Max kind of hops from situation to situation, getting involved and then stepping back, it makes it a little easier to build new characters and build new scenarios where you can kind of branch out and see other things.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too, because in the opening monologue of the film, he's basically just saying like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing out here, but all I'm just trying to do is survive. So really that's where it kind of leads, where he's stumbles upon this crazy dramatic story with this crazy civilization with Immortan Joe and his 5 secret beautiful supermodel wives that he keeps in the basement, and he's trying to like make a perfect baby because all of his babies are born with like weird deformities and stuff, so he's just trying to make one that can be like the heir to his weird creepy kingdom. And you know, he just kind of shows up in that story and he's like, I'm just here to survive, and he's just passing through, but he gets caught up in this crazy story. And I think that was really cool that they kind of said, here's this crazy story, Mad Max is just gonna drive through it. Get it? Driving. But I'm curious to see where they take this franchise, because they can take it in whatever direction they want, because they have now all these cool, different, interesting characters that kind of stand out. I just wish they didn't kill off Nicholas Hoult. I guess maybe they didn't, we don't really see him die, but he crashes that whole truck.
No, he dies.
He had the most interesting character arc in the film, where his character's name was Nux, and he starts off as like the war boy. He's got I have to like, and Morton Joe just looks at him and he goes, "I'm chosen." I'm like ready. He's like ready to kill himself because this guy
Yeah.
looked him in the eyes. And by the end of the film, he's like helping the other side, which is interesting. He I think had the craziest character development in the whole film.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really like this movie. It's a crazy movie,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot of fun.
It is. What was the budget? It was, I have it here, 1 second.
The
budget was, this is weird. They give like a range. It was between 154.6 million to 185.1 million.
It's hard to know how many cars they blew up, huh?
I guess. But box office, it made 375.4 million. So bona fide hit right there.
Well, I don't know if I would say hit. They doubled their money, but typically movies like, especially newer movies within the last couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing a $200 million movie, which this almost is, or let's say $175 million movie,
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood is like, you should be like tripling or quadrupling that money.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Though it's definitely a success, and they definitely made their money back, and then more so, but I think honestly I'm surprised it's not more, is all I'm trying to say.
Well, I'm reading more into it, and it you're right, they're saying it was a box office disappointment theatrically. The problem is that most of our films make money when they get shown over in Asia, particularly in China, and it did not have a release in China. That release was canceled, and so if it had opened there, it could have passed 400 million.
Wow.
Easily.
That's the thing, is China is a whole other market that I think Marvel has definitely tried to respect or pay respects to that market. They've even been in production on this movie that's coming out called Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we'll see more about it soon. But it's basically an all Chinese cast, and it's a Chinese hero. It's basically if Bruce Lee had superpowers, as far as I know. But he's a very obscure Marvel character that they're saying, screw it, we're going to make this a huge blockbuster because this audience deserves a film of their own, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is awesome. More power to him. Mad Max.
Yeah, we'll see what
I
they
could
do.
keep talking about this movie too. It came out in 3D, which is also another crazy thing about it.
I can't imagine seeing that in 3D.
The cars blowing up in your face and all the parts flying by. Just imagine that two-headed lizard getting its ripped off by Tom.
Or seeing what's his face in the gross body with the thing, with
all the boils,
all the sores and stuff.
Gross.
In 3D.
Nasty.
So
I think the biggest shot in 3D is when the truck eventually does flip over and the steering wheel flies into the camera.
Yeah.
Remember that one? That one must have been like the big finish where people in the audience are like getting hit in the face with a steering wheel. But this movie is wild. It's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. Where did you watch it?
My living room.
No, but I mean, like Hulu, Netflix.
Oh.
Where did you watch it?
What?
Come on.
HBO Max.
HBO Max. Everybody get HBO Max because all the movies in the next year are going to be coming out on it.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, whether we're, movie theaters might reopen, but chances are they probably won't. I really don't want to watch Godzilla versus Kong because I don't foresee that movie having huge emotional performances.
No.
I really just see it as a big monster fight, which that I'm cool with. But I don't want to watch that on my, 40-inch TV.
Yeah. There are some films that definitely just, you need to experience them in the theater. I think 1917 was one of those films that should have been experienced in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
A Quiet Place is probably one that should have been experienced in a theater.
I don't think A Quiet Place needed the theater because of the big visuals like Godzilla versus Kong has.
I
But
think
it's
it's
more of an
just
experience. It's really
yeah.
being around other people. And, you know, usually when you're watching a movie, you don't want the person next to you to be going, oh, no, don't walk in there. Oh, my God.
No,
So
well, and
that
not every movie, but like not everyone has a situation at home where they can completely, you know, watch a movie completely in the dark, no other light or sound, you know, to really experience like what John Krasinski wants you to experience, you know.
Mhm.
So like there are certain films, you know, and the big, you know, the big epic monster movies and all of that that should be experienced in the theater. So
Yeah.
hopefully, you know, all of this is, you know, being all of this released to streaming immediately is just a band-aid for now.
Yeah. I mean, when A Quiet Place 2 was about to come out in March of last year,
Oh God.
worst timing of, I think, any movie,
Yeah.
John Krasinski came out right away and he said, look, we could just put this movie out online, but we don't know what's going on. And I think it needs to be released in theaters. So I'm going to put a hold on it. And everyone went, are you nuts? You can't do that. That's crazy. Your movie's about to come out. And I think he made the right decision in the end, because now his movie will come out eventually in theaters. Who knows when? But now I don't know if you haven't left your apartment in forever, but there's a huge billboard. If you're driving around the city, you'll see this huge billboard for A Quiet Place 2, where it just says coming soon. It doesn't say when, it just says soon. And I think that is fun, because then you could like have movies speak. If a bunch of other movies followed the same mentality, they take their time, get it done right. Because as soon as you put April 25th on a movie, that movie is stuck and it has to be done by then. It has to be out by then. If you say coming soon, you can get away with saying we're going to take another month because it needs to be done right.
Mm-hmm.
So take your time, enjoy shit, put it together the right way.
Message for all filmmakers out there.
Give us good movies rather than cranking them out for no reason, you know?
Yeah. Take your time, do it right.
Yeah.
Oh, that seems like a good note to wrap everything up on.
Right. I should say something really stupid and awkward to ruin the moment. I won't, though. Thank you again to our day player, Paul Braun, for coming on the podcast, talking to us about his stuff with Lucky Six Productions and all the other different shows he's got going on. Thank you for suggesting Mad Max Fury Road. And again, thank you to Limelight for providing a musical performance, a little breather in between the interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. You can catch us on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Castbox, and you can also see our beautiful faces on YouTube, which I know is your most preferred way to watch us. We'll see you guys next time. I'm Victoria Fragnito.
I'm Jim Galizia. Thank you for tuning in to the AFC Podcast.